We're coming off the back of last night's AEW Dynamite from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which means it's time for another WrestlePlanet news update, as the Icon Sting is set to wrestle next week. Kenny Omega's opponent for AEW All Out has been revealed, and CM Punk gives his thoughts on AEW's Darby Allin. All that and more coming up in today's video, but first, we start with some unfortunate news as former WCW and WWE Tag Team Champion Brian Knobbs was rushed to hospital earlier this week. Knobbs, who is best known as one half of the Nasty Boys tag team, is said to be dealing with major stomach issues and is currently being tested to determine the severity of his illnesses. Brian's friend Fred Young has set up a GoFundMe page to help with medical expenses and told fans, "Just yesterday, Brian was rushed by ambulance to the emergency ward where he is going through a battery of tests to determine the severity of his major stomach issues. His doctors have expressed extreme concern and told Brian that he will probably remain in hospital for at least the next couple of months. Brian's good knee has finally given out and requires a surgery if he hopes to walk again. Brian is a proud man who has tirelessly worked his entire life to be self-sufficient." The fundraiser is almost halfway to the $25,000 goal, and I'll leave a link in the pinned comment if you can help out. Last night's taping of AEW Dark Elevation saw the debut of a recently departed Impact Wrestling star. Kiera Hogan, who left Impact Wrestling last month after her contract expired, took on former AEW Women's Champion Hikaru Shida. Those that have been around the channel for a while will know that Kiera was one of the wrestlers mentioned in our contracts that expire after WrestleMania video, and it seems that we now know the next step in her career. Kiera joins her girlfriend Diamante in the promotion, who last wrestled at the end of July, losing to Layla Hirsch on Dark. Kiera is a two-time Impact Knockouts Tag Team Champion alongside Tasha Steelz as part of Fire and Flavor, with the duo dropping their belts for the final time at this year's Slammiversary. The Hikaru Shida vs Kiera Hogan match will air on Monday night on the AEW YouTube channel as part of AEW Dark Elevation. Last night's Dynamite saw several match announcements, one of which will see Andrade El Idolo take on Pac at the AEW All Out pay-per-view. Over the past few weeks, Andrade has tried to recruit Pac's stablemates Rey Fenix and Penta El Zero M, seemingly in an attempt to build a faction around him. On Dynamite, Pac and the Lucha Brothers took part in a backstage promo, with Pac telling the brothers that they deserve tag team gold and that's what they need to focus on. He then turned his attention to Andrade and sent a message to the Idol and said, "Now Andrade, the reality is this. We don't know you, we don't like you, and we certainly have no idea why you're obsessed with Death Triangle, but that stops now. And if for whatever reason you have a problem with what I'm saying, well, anywhere, anytime, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough. I'm easy to find." Later in the night, Andrade and his associate Chavo Guerrero accepted the challenge with a one-on-one match set for the pay-per-view. Andrade has his hands full over the next few weeks, as this Saturday he's competing in the Triple Mania main event, where he takes on Kenny Omega for the AAA Mega Championship, one of many of Omega's current titles. Both the Omega and Pac match should be tremendous. Another match was announced, this time for next week's Dynamite, as Sting is set to wrestle his third AEW match as he teams with Darby Allin to take on the team of 2.0, which is Matt Lee and Jeff Parker, in a Texas Tornado Tag Rules match. This means all participants can be in the ring at the same time, so basically a regular AEW tag match, am I right, FTR? This will be the Icon's second ever match in the ring itself, with his first AEW bout being a cinematic match in a warehouse. Once again, Sting teams with Allin after defeating Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky last time around at Double or Nothing. It seems we may be edging closer to the AEW in-ring debut of Paul Wight, as last night he got physical for the first time. Prior to the main event, QT Marshall was in the ring with Tony Schiavone, and Marshall was set to apologize to Tony for pouring a drink on his head several weeks ago, but instead, the Factory's Aaron Solo and Nick Comoroto took Schiavone's son Chris from the crowd before attacking him as Tony was held back. Marshall then hit Chris with a diamond cut cutter, which led to the former Big Show getting involved. Wight would climb into the ring staring down the heels before Solo was pushed into Wight to allow Marshall and Comarato to escape before Solo was dropped by a huge chokeslam. So far, Wight has worked as a commentator for AEW Dark Elevation, but this angle seems to be setting up for his first match, probably against QT Marshall at All Out next month. Wight has made no secret of his plans to return to the ring, and it looks like we're one step closer. It's good to see him being kept as a special attraction rather than an active competitor, and a string of wins could build him up ready for him to do the job to one of AEW's up-and-coming big men, potentially Will Hobbs or Wardlow. And quickly, just before we continue, make sure you scroll down and drop a like and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any upcoming wrestling content as we head towards 20,000 subscribers. But now that you've done that, let's get on with the rest of the video. And speaking of Wardlow, Chris Jericho managed to defeat the big man last night to advance to the final chapter of the ongoing Labours of Jericho. MJF was ringside for the match but wasn't able to help his friend as he got caught handing Wardlow the Dynamite diamond ring, which caused a referee distraction, leading to Jericho using a baseball bat and striking his opponent with a Judas effect for the 1-2-3. This means Jericho finally gets his match with MJF, which will happen next week on Dynamite. MJF did, however, add a stipulation where Jericho is not allowed to use his Judas effect finishing move, and his entrance song Judas is also banned. Whether this match will mean the end of the feud or not is still unknown, but I do hope that MJF just beats Jericho and moves on. Last night's show also saw 2 world title match announcements, with Kenny Omega scheduled to defend 2 of his belts in the upcoming weeks. First, Omega will defend his Impact World title in the opening match of this Friday's AEW Rampage premiere in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He will be taking on former Impact World Champion Christian Cage. This follows Christian claiming he had a meeting with AEW President Tony Khan and Impact EVP Scott D'Amore. Christian will get another shot at Omega 3 weeks later, as the main event of AEW All Out will see him take on Kenny, this time for the AEW World Championship. And finally, continuing on from last night's video, we have more from CM Punk's interview with the Sunday Night Main Event podcast, where he discussed his upcoming Heels TV show and was also asked about the AEW rumours, with him said to be debuting next week on AEW Rampage. Whilst he denied the rumours and pretended that he had a screening for his new show, there is no screening currently set, and I don't think there will be, and also CM Punk said this would be for the 3rd episode of the series, but Punk is only in the 1st and final episode. And this is clearly a lie, and don't worry, he will be in the United Center. I'm almost certain of it. 99.999999%. A random podcast isn't exactly the place to break the news officially, and it's unlikely that we'll get official word until he shows up in the United Center. The arena has already sold out based on the rumors alone, so they don't need the extra boost in ticket sales, and fans will already be tuning in to see Punk because AEW have teased it, and they wouldn't have done that if they haven't signed him. They've made it so obvious by this point that it would be so stupid if he wasn't, and it would turn a lot of fans off the product. Punk's first match in AEW is heavily tipped to be Darby Allin, who seemed to call him out a few weeks ago when he said, "I'll be in Chicago. You know, I've been around a lot of men in this world that have laid claim to how they're the greatest. There's only one place to really prove that, right here in AEW, even if you think you're the best in the world." Clearly, this is a reference to CM Punk, who called himself the best in the world during his time in WWE, and this promo directly followed the announcement for the first dance special of Rampage in the United Center. In the interview yesterday, Punk was asked about what he thinks of Darby Allin, and had nothing but praise for the 28-year-old prospect, and said, "I think Darby Allin's great. I think everybody in the wrestling world needs to never do a dive ever again, because you can't do it better than Darby. You know, when I approach my in-ring stuff, I could do a moonsault. It sucks, and why would I do one because everybody on the roster can do one better than me, so it's like, why bother? If you watch Darby Allin wrestle and watch him do one of those dives, he actually looks like he's trying to murder somebody. So it doesn't get any better than that. Stop doing dives, everybody." As we know, Darby has the best dives in the business, and rather than doing a pretty flip, he throws himself at his opponent like a bullet with the intent to hurt. It's clear Punk is a fan of Darby's work, and it's also pretty clear that he's been watching the AEW product, potentially for some research. And before you go, why not check out my video where I discuss 5 ways that AEW could book the debut of CM Punk.